I hope you're all okay and all good. Welcome to another video. My name is George. For those of you who don't know, feel free to subscribe down below if you're not already. And this is Vlogmas Day 10. My tummy just did the loudest rumble. Today, in another video that was suggested for me when I asked on Instagram what kinds of videos you wanted to see during Vlogmas, I'm talking about books that I reread and why. I don't do a huge amount of rereading. I try not to, at least. There are so many books in the world that I have not read. There are so many books on these shelves that I've not read that I really want to read. And so when I don't usually consider rereading a book when I'm considering what I'm going to read next, because I know that there is something on these shelves that a world I've not been into yet, characters I've not discovered and spent time with, and I don't want to. There's that bit in my brain that feels a little bit guilty about going back and spending time with characters that I know I already love and books that I'm already comfortable with. However, there are books that I do find myself turning to every now and again and going back to and rereading because of comfort, or because I enjoyed them so much the first time around, or just because they're an old favourite. Or actually, in some cases, and this is something that I read about on the internet which freaked me out a little bit, is that sometimes you rewatch the same programs over and over again, or you reread the same books over and over again, because it's like a comfort blanket and it stops you feeling so anxious because you know what's going to happen, which probably explains why I'm almost continuously just watching RuPaul's Drag Race just over and over and over again. Currently on season 8. Although with that, what I do is I'll be listening to Race Chaser, which is a podcast done by Willem and Alaska from Drag Race. And I found that I did it in season 4. I watched the season that they were watching and then carried on for a little bit. And I've done it again because they're doing season 5 now. And I watched the season while they were talking about it, got ahead of them, and then I've just carried on. But anyhow, that's a whole different thing. Let's talk about some books that I reread or have reread in the past. The first one we're going to talk about, and this is kind of an interesting one, or at least it's an interesting one for me. I don't know if it's an interesting one for you. Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. I love this book with my entire being. I think it's so beautiful. I think it's so adorable and heartwarming, and it is just a comfort blanket. I was also lucky enough to get given a copy that has my name on it. George versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda. Come through, mama. Yes, you, mama. For those of you who don't know about this book, where have you been? Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda, which later became the film Love, Simon, was Becky Albertalli's debut YA novel. It is about a 16-year-old boy called Simon Spear who has been emailing a boy at his school who goes by the name of Blue. He doesn't know who he is, and essentially comes out to him, and those emails are found by, I've forgotten his name, but he's a total arsehole. And this boy threatens to out him to the whole school if he doesn't kind of help him be friends, help him get closer to this girl that is Simon's best friend. So it's about Simon trying to come to terms with himself and who he is, while having this threat over his head, essentially. Reasons I've reread this. Like I already said, comfort blanket. Thing number 2, I was working at Penguin. Oh my God. I was doing work experience. It's gone dark outside and it's changed my lighting. I was doing work experience at Penguin Random House at the time. Maybe this was before they were even Penguin Random House. They might have just been Penguin at the time. Anyway, I was doing work experience there while I was at university. I took 2 weeks off university to kind of go and do that, which was not good. I think it was a reading week, and maybe it was 2 reading weeks. I don't know. Basically, I was rehearsing for my end of year show when I was at university, and I was like in the evenings, and in the daytime I was at Penguin. Anyway, God, this is turning into a long rambly thing. I was working there, and I'd written something about this book in an essay, I think, for my creative writing dissertation, because it had been announced at the time, and I didn't know that it was a book that Penguin were publishing in the UK, I don't think. And Anthea said, "Oh, do you want to read it?" So Anthea sent me the manuscript in Word document form, and I got to read it, and I loved it. I fell head over heels in love with it. And then I read it again, and then I read it again, because it was just this, it was such a beautiful, pure, happy book. And I don't know what was happening at the time in my life. I don't know what was happening at the time in the world, but I remember that there was a lot of the kill your gaze trope, which I think it was around a lot then. There were a lot of TV shows and a lot of books that were still doing that. And this was the polar opposite of that. And I think because of that, it had such an impact on me. I'm very sad to say, I don't think I've read it. I think it came out and I read it again, but I don't think I've read it since then, if that makes sense. I've kind of left it. I have read Becky's other work, but I've not reread this, and this is making me want to do that. But it was because it was such a happy book to me, and it was just such a source of joy and wonder. Speaking of sources of joy and wonder, Black Flamingo by Dean Atta is a book that I only read in the year of our Lord Brittany 2020. And I loved it. I sat up in my room and I cried. I think I read it in 2 sittings. And in the second sitting, I wept like a tiny child because I loved it so much. And I read it then. I read it again because I was doing an event with Dean for Edinburgh Book Festival and I wanted it to be fresh in my mind. And there's a part of me that wants to download the audiobook because it's read by Dean, so I want to hear it in Dean's voice. This book is wonderful. I've not told you what it's about, but it's about a boy called Michael. Basically, it tells his story from birth right up to university, and it is him discovering who he is and where he fits in the world and discovering drag when he goes to university as well. And it's so stunning. I loved it so much. Like I said, it made me cry. And I returned to it not just because I returned to it because I was doing the event with Dean and was kind of reminded of just how gorgeous and like heart-wrenching this book is. It's so stuns. I got to hear Dean read one of the poems at the Edinburgh Book Festival event, and like it was over Zoom, and it's a beautiful book. It's one of my faves of the year for sure. And yeah, I forget where I'm going with this. I'm meant to be talking about rereads and I'm just like telling you how amazing this book is, but this is amazing, so get into it. And the last like books that I reread, which again, it seems that I'm discovering this as I go. The books that I reread seem to be books that I'm like, I feel joy and give me comfort and give me the sweetness. And those books are also Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. These are a series of graphic novels about Nick and Charlie, 2 characters that popped up in Alice's debut YA novel Solitaire. When the 3rd one came out, I believe I reread books 1 and 2 in preparation for reading the 3rd one because I wanted to kind of like have the full experience. Even before that, I had reread these in the past because I read these when they were being published on Tumblr, before they were even going to be a book. I was reading them when they were on Tumblr. So I read them digitally, obsessively, and then was rereading them when they came out in book form, each one of these, and then reread them again in preparation for this. And I do think that like when it comes to rereading books, I'm doing it because they're things that just give me like a warm feeling. Actually, I'm talking about it now, and I reread Nick and Charlie. Can I reach it? I reread this, and this is what kind of got me out of my reading funk and kind of made me like create massive TBRs, which I may not even complete, but I'm gonna do my darndest. And I reread this because I read this as an ebook on my phone, standing on a train when I used to work in publishing. It's funny, isn't it? Like, because Nick and Charlie are characters that I really love, and the Heartstopper books just fill me with this like joy and warmth, in the same way that Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda does, in the same way that the Black Flamingo does, which I was kind of rereading because I was doing an event with Dean, but actually, I think if we're completely honest with ourselves, I was rereading it because like that entire book is just this giant hug and it's wonderful. Audiobooks are kind of a different thing because in the way that I don't often reread physical books, it is a rare time that I am not re-listening to an audiobook. I'm a big audiobook person. I've had an Audible subscription for so many years, and I love it so much. I love being read to. It works for me mostly for like non-fiction because I'm not a big non-fiction reader. I don't think I'm clever enough to like have to actually like read it physically. But also I like celebrity biographies when they're read by celebrities that I like. So ones that I reread are Spectacles by Sue Perkins, who I adore. And the way that she's written it, Sue Perkins is an incredible writer. I feel like if Sue Perkins wrote fiction, I would die. The way that Sue Perkins writes is the whole thing is very narrative nonfiction, which I suppose is the deal for biographies, but this is very that. And it's very much, you are learning about Sue Perkins, the character, as well as Sue Perkins, the person. And Sue has a way of writing that really like cuts you to your core, and it's really gorgeous. And it's even more gorgeous when it's being read with the correct intonations because that's the way that Sue wrote it, if that makes sense. The other one that I constantly re-listen to is Bossy Pants by Tina Fey. I've talked about Bossy Pants on this channel before. I'm a huge fan of Tina Fey. I'm a huge fan of 30 Rock. I think she's incredible and I love her in that. And so the reason I downloaded Bossy Pants is because I wanted to know more about how that came about and how 30 Rock happened and what her career was like beforehand. And now I probably re-listened to it many times because I like to listen to audiobooks while I walk around. But also I like to listen to audiobooks but when I go to sleep. So I'm being read to before I go to bed. So when it comes to things, so I would never listen to a new audiobook that I've not listened to before in my bedtimes because I'll be into it. Whereas Bossy Pants, I can practically like read it with her at this point because it's one of my bedtime books, as is Spectacles by Sue Perkins. There are parts of it that I just know. There's a moment in Bossy Pants, and this happened when I was going to sleep a couple of nights ago, where she's talking about her dad. She says something about someone not being in the Hall of Fame. Bullshit! And I found myself like mouthing along bullshit because I knew it was coming. That's by the by. But so I've done that with Sue Perkins, I've done that with Tina Fey, I've done that with Tan France's book, Naturally Tan, which I listened to either earlier on this year or late last year. I can't remember. It might have been this year, but this year has felt like it's like 78 billion months long, so who knows. But Tan France off of Queer Eye, his audiobook is absolutely stunning and gorgeous, and he has a beautiful speaking voice. So again, it's being spoken to while I go to sleep. Sometimes I use the Balance app and I have this lovely man with this gorgeous voice like telling me to untense my jaw and like untense my forehead and sink further into the pillow. Or sometimes I just have Tan France telling me about the time when he had like a clothing empire that he was running from his bedroom, and he had like separate emails pretending he was different people so he looked like a bigger company. I love re-listening to audiobooks, and for some reason I don't get the same guilt that I get when I reread a book sometimes. I don't know where this video is going. You've asked me what books I reread and I've kind of covered it. There are a couple of David Levithan books that I reread. Boy Meets Boy and Two Boys Kissing are two of my favourite David Levithan books ever, and I've reread both of those because Boy Meets Boy was the first time that I had ever felt I'd ever seen a gay character on the page of a book, and it's like this gorgeous utopian town where it's just accepted and no one really cares, and it's kind of amazing for that. And Two Boys Kissing is, I don't know how to describe Two Boys Kissing apart from that it's like one of the most beautiful books ever written, and you should probably read it. I don't really know what to tell you about that one. I just really love that book. It's stunning. It's like many different stories being told all at once, different queer stories being told all at once, essentially told by a chorus of gay men who have died, and it's so gorgeous. I cry at that book every time I read it. But I don't feel that same guilt when it's with audiobooks as I do when it's with physical books. But I think we all have those books that are like these comfort blankets, and I think when everything is terrible, sometimes, or if you're in a reading rut, maybe the thing to do is to reread an old favourite. That's probably advice somewhere that someone has actually given, and I've just managed to ignore it whenever I've been in a reading rut. Because like I already said, I reread Heartstopper at the start of this year and it kind of kicked off some reading for me. I reread Nick and Charlie quite recently and it kicked off some reading for me. So yeah, I don't know how to end this video, but I would love to hear in the comments what books you reread. What books do you return to? Do you feel the same guilt that I do when you reread books? Because I do feel quite an intense guilt sometimes, because so many unread books. So many. Maybe I should do, I saw someone, I think it was Gav, How to Train Your Gavin, who did a video of like the books that have been on his TBR the longest, or like books that have been unread on his shelves for the longest. And I could do that, and it would be embarrassing. Tell me if you want that. That could be a fun Vlogmas video. Anyway, that is the end of this video. Like I said, tell me books that you reread in the comments. I would love to hear what they are and what your thoughts on rereading are. Do you feel guilt, or do you just feel fine with it because you're a normal person and it's your life and you're not being like judged on reading? It's entirely your own like life and thing to do. But that is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, don't forget to put a thumb on it and subscribe down below if you want to see more. I love each and every one of your faces, and I'll speak to you hopefully tomorrow. Bye. That was a good one. I've not done that for a while at the end of a video. You're welcome for the tongue pops, as ever.